Every now and then, a game will come along and completely redefine a genre for you. Halo 2 was my introduction to first-person shooters, Super Smash Bros. Melee was my foray into fighting games, and Golden Sun? Well, Golden Sun ignited my lifelong love for anime-inspired medieval fantasy JRPGs. Golden Sun has amassed somewhat of a cult following since its release. So you'd be forgiven for assuming that the game was made by industry veterans with a wealth of knowledge of JRPGs. Well, the studio behind this gem, Camelot, has produced absolute classics such as Everybody's Golf, Mario Golf, Mobile Golf, Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, We Love Golf, and of course the cancelled but highly anticipated game, I Love Golf. Okay, so putting golf to the side for a moment, Camelot has also made some adventure and RPGs back in the day. I can't say that I've ever played any of them or even recognized them, but if they somewhat inspired Golden Sun, then maybe they're worth checking out. There's two reasons why I remember Golden Sun so vividly. The first one is, well, just look at it. While the Game Boy obviously didn't have the best fidelity, they managed to cram so much charm and memorable visuals into this little cartridge. The second reason is that the first time I played this game, I didn't speak English. Nor did I speak any of the other languages that the game offered. You'd think that the story was completely lost on me as a result, but being a kid with a vivid imagination meant that I could sort of will myself to understand what was going on. I could fill in the gaps with my own interpretations and use visual clues to figure out relationships and motives. I don't think that this is something that I could or would want to do today, but thankfully I've learned enough English to get me through a children's game. So, join me as I play through Golden Sun for the first time in about 20 years. I'm not gonna go through the entire game's chapters beat by beat, but I do want to highlight the prologue just a touch extra. I have some faint memories of how the game opened up, but I had completely missed just how well this prologue sets up the rest of the game. We play as a teenager named Isaac, and before we can learn anything more about him, we're off to a roaring start as our mother wakes us up in the middle of a storm. It's the kind of storm where boulders are raining down to block non-essential paths, so you know it's bad. We're told that this eruption could spell the end of the village, Vale, that we live in. This is obviously not very cash money, so we scramble to find help. Before long, we run into our second protagonist, Garrett. He's got red hair, so you know he's the fiery type. He's also the comic relief throughout the game and has the typical funny guy characteristics of being lazy and dumb. Actually, I don't even know if that's true or not, but everyone else in the game kind of dunks on him all the time, so I wanted to do the same. As we're bumbling around the village, we come across a group of people trying to save a young man from drowning. He might be a teenager actually. Regardless of his age, we're unsuccessful in our attempt to save him. I was a little surprised to see that a game that's rated E for everyone starts off with someone drowning, but hey, why not? As we're running around the village, ping-ponging around events, we're also introduced to combat. At this stage in the game, you only have the option to do a basic attack, so there's not a lot to say about it for now. Well, that is until we bump into Jesse and James. I suppose this could qualify as the game's first boss fight, but it's one of those fights that you're supposed to lose. I remember as a kid I would restart the game over and over again to see if there was anything I could do to win this fight. 20 years later and I still want to find out, but this time I figured I would outsource the work to a quick Google search. And to absolutely no one's surprise, you can't beat them. Even if you hack the game to tip the odds in your favor, the game is scripted to have them kill you. Anyway, we're woken up 3 years later, so I guess they didn't actually kill us and instead decided to blast off again. Life seems to be back to normal as Isaac is helping his mom with fixing the roof. Jen and Garrett are having a fight about something, and we learn that we now control something called Psynergy. Or we have Psynergy. Or we are Psynergy? I don't know, it's this game's version of magic. As we're fixing the roof, our mom keeps referencing what happened during the storm 3 years ago in a really awkward manner. She keeps talking about it in a really odd way since to us, the player, the storm literally just happened. It's a little weird to be this exposition heavy about something that we experienced a minute ago, but I guess that's JRPGs for you. She even asks us if we think that things would have been different if our abilities were stronger. Jesus Christ, Mom, go to therapy and stop trauma dumping on me in front of my friends. After this, we're off to see the village elder, Kraden, to study alchemy. Now, the term alchemy in video games can be a little misleading, or at the very least it usually only represents part of what alchemy is. Usually in video games, alchemy is synonymous with potion mixing. This isn't wrong by any means, but it's also not the whole truth. In ancient times, alchemy was indeed a way to make elixirs and potions of immortality. But the often overlooked part of alchemy is the one where it can turn any type of metal into gold and act as sort of the building blocks to life itself. Alchemy has been seen in lots of different ancient civilizations, and I'd say that Golden Sun's version of alchemy most closely resembles the one from ancient Greece, as they also tie alchemy with the 4 elements. We'll get back to those in a bit. Golden Sun's version of alchemy is a bit esoteric, and it doesn't have a fully defined standard, beyond it being the essence of life and it making up everything in the universe and yada yada. You've heard it before. Just pretend it's the Force or something and you'll mostly get it. Before Creighton gets a chance to tell us about any of this though, we are accosted by the very same people who, 3 years ago, just tried to kill us, or 9 minutes ago if we're going by real life time. They almost repeat the exact same conversation that we just had with them, even asking us if we were eavesdropping on them. I found it a little odd that Isaac nor Garrett seems to care about this at all, but I suppose it's possible that they don't remember these creatures since the last season. Creighton lets us know that they were harassing him about going to Soul Sanctum, a big-ass dungeon that looms over town. They seem to know a whole lot about the 4 elemental stars, alchemy, and the Sanctum. Naturally, we head over there and we're introduced to our first dungeon. It's a watered-down, level 1 kind of dungeon that tells us what we can expect in the future. Combat, puzzles, and more combat. This is one of those games where you are constantly running into enemies in the world. This is an aspect of older RPGs that I most certainly do not miss. You can of course flee, but I'd much rather have a lower encounter rate. At this point, Jen has also joined our party for some extra firepower. Literally speaking, she knows a fire spell. Sorry, Psynergy. Either way, we make our way through the dungeon and come across our first puzzle. I guess. I mean, it's not much of a puzzle at all. We're moving a couple of pillars around and there's only one solution to it, but it serves as a forewarning of all the pillars that will be moving around. Because oh boy, I don't remember much from this game, but I do remember moving pillars as if my life depended on it. As much as Creighton claims to be an expert on all things alchemy, he is kind of useless. At one point, the solution to a puzzle is to walk into the next room, and he couldn't even manage that on his own. After some fidgeting around this ancient temple, we're teleported into a mysterious place where we spot the elemental stars. I'm still not 100% sure what these things are, but Creighton seems to think they're important and he brought a special bag to hold them. Supposedly the elemental stars make up the universe or something, so you'd think it takes something a little more, robust than a handmade bag to hold them, but what do I know, he's the expert. As we're hopping around this mysterious place, Jesse and James appear out of nowhere, and to no one's surprise, they're up to no good. They want the elemental stars for themselves to control the world or something, I think. We're told that they'll be able to do so by lighting 4 lighthouses. However, they're not alone this time. A mysterious masked man follows behind them shortly, and this sets up one of the game's greatest mysteries. Who is this man? How did he get here? Why is he working with— oh, it's Felix. It's Jenna's brother, the guy who drowned. Well, like, why even set this up as a mystery if we're gonna Scooby-Doo reveal his identity in the same scene 30 seconds later? And also, he's revealed only because they refer to him as Felix. Apparently it's inconceivable to everyone that he might not be the same Felix, and that there could just be another Felix out there. There's also a guy named Alex, and he just kind of inserts himself into all of this as well. Anyway, Felix and gang steals a star, kidnap Jen and Creighton, the mysterious void starts to come undone, a floating eyeball saves us, and we're back in Vale with the rest of the villagers. Everyone agrees that it's best if 2 17-year-old boys are sent out into an effort to save the world by beating our adversaries to the elemental lighthouses and bring back Jen and Creighton. And that is how our grand adventure starts. I genuinely do think that this is a great prologue. It does some quick world building, sets up a few mysteries, introduces our villains, and paves the way for our adventure to come. Now that we've been forced into adulthood and sent on a quest to save the world, we're pushed out into the overworld where we spot our first Jinn. Jinn are magical little creatures that all belong to one of the 4 elements. They'll join your party and help out in combat in several different ways. The way that they work is actually pretty interesting. You can set a Jinn to one of your party members. Setting a Jinn means 2 things. 1. Your stats are increased for as long as the Jinn is set, and 2. The Jinn can unleash a special move in combat. These moves range from damaging moves to buffs and debuffs. If you use one of these special Jinn moves, your Jinn becomes unset, which in turn allows you to use a summon, and summons are huge damage dealers, and the more Jinn you find, the stronger the summons you'll unlock. Now, on top of all of this, Jinns of different elemental types can also be mixed and matched, and doing so will alter your party members' Psynergy. I'm gonna stop talking about the mechanics of the Jinns right there, because getting Jinns explained to you can be wildly confusing. Just know that the system is very intuitive and you'll get the hang of it almost immediately. Overall, I really like the Jinns. The mechanics are really solid and allow for a lot of strategizing, while also not being so overbearing that you end up staring at a menu for half of the game. Their designs make them fun to collect too. Had they just been crystals or gems or whatever, I think they'd feel less exciting to come across. And you do come across them, quite a lot. There are 28 of them to be found, and I like the way that the game introduces them to you. You'll typically spot them in a place that you can't quite reach. Sometimes it's a simple puzzle that needs to be solved, other times it's an area that you'll need to come back to after having unlocked an ability. Gin this, gin that, let's have a glass of gin and move on. We hop on over to the next town where we find out that some thieves are held up. They've stolen something from the very same village that they're hiding in, but before we can confront them, we are introduced to our next party member, Ivan, who is a Jupiter adept. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, each party member is a so-called adept. It's someone who can use Psynergy, and they're associated with one of the 4 elements. Ivan is Jupiter, meaning wind, Isaac is Venus, meaning earth, and Garrett is Mars, meaning, you guessed it, Elon Musk. Ivan is not great with social interactions, however, as he continuously reads our minds while being fully aware that we can tell what he's doing. Through them, we find out that a merchant named Hammett is in trouble in a city called Lumpa, and before we know it, we're in our very first boss battle. They go down without much of a fight, and we split ways with Ivan as he's set on rescuing Hammett. I find this split to be a little odd, as we're only parting ways with Ivan for like 2 minutes, and then we bump into him right outside of the neighboring cave. In this cave, we also pick up our first Mars-type gem. Neat. After that, we happen upon the next town in trouble. Bilibin. And yes, this is one of those RPGs where we go from town to town solving whatever problem they found themselves in. Quick side note, when I went to Google the town of Bilibin, the first thing that came up was a Russian artist by the name of Ivan Bilibin. And we just recruited Ivan. This can't be a coincidence. What does it mean? You tell me. Either way, a really rich dude is looking for warriors to help save the people from a curse that has befallen upon them. And who better to help than a bunch of kids? Actually, no, the rich guy says that we're too young and tells us to stay out of it. Huh. Typically in these games, you'll always find some rich, out-of-touch tyrant who's willing to sacrifice others for his own gain. Not this time. Alright, I see you, Golden Sun. So what is this curse? Well, it leads us into what is, for me, the most memorable part of this game. An angry tree has turned people into, well, trees. Tret, the tree in question, is exacting his revenge on humans because the folks of Kolyma had been practicing the favorite pastime of people of all civilizations: deforestation. Because we have plot armor, Tret's curse doesn't work on us though. I don't exactly know why, but this dungeon really sticks out in my mind. It's incredibly nostalgic to be back. There's something about the presentation in this game that really strikes a chord with me. Visual fidelity was obviously very limited for the Game Boy Advance, which is why it's so impressive that Camelot managed so much with so little. Although maybe that is it, maybe it's the limitations that spurred on the creativity. Comparing this game to Golden Sun Dark Dawn, which was released on the Nintendo DS, and yeah, this series looked a lot more alive on the Game Boy. I'm not going to delve into Dark Dawn in this video, don't worry, I'm just really vibing with everything from the character portraits to how combat plays out. When using stronger attacks, the screen shakes and gives you some sense of impact. All of the different locations that you visit are also really diverse and have their own visual flair to them. As I was going through this dungeon, Isaac and Ivan were KO'd, meaning that Garrett was left to fend for himself against Tret. It didn't go over too well, and I was met with my first defeat of the playthrough. And oh boy, I had forgotten how brutal these older games can be when compared to what's being released today. We're sent all the way back to the latest town we were in, and not only that, we have to pay to revive our party members. I don't know if it's possible to softlock yourself because of this. I mean, what if you don't have enough money after defeat? Let's not find out. I hit up the local blacksmith to gear up and head out to chop down Tret. This time with a full party and the deforestation of Isengard in mind, I managed to eke out a victory. In defeat, Tret becomes too weak to restore the people of Kolyma to their human selves, meaning that we have to seek out a way to regain his strength. Continuing on our adventure, and we eventually land in the town of Emil. You know how I said that it's one of those games where you bounce around from town to town to help out with whatever problem they're having? Well, here everyone has a royal case of the man cold, which introduces us to our next and final party member, Mia, who's the town healer. She doesn't join our party right away, but just by looking at her character model, you can tell she's important, and we are sorely lacking a healer in our party. From here we move on to our first lighthouse, the Mercury Lighthouse. It's here where the game starts chucking actual puzzles at us, and I guess this is a good time to mention that our Psynergy isn't just for combat. Some moves are used to manipulate objects in the world as well, such as move. Puzzles aren't super hard, but they'll also give me pause to think about the solution from time to time, and mechanically speaking, they do employ a lot of different gameplay elements. Eventually, we make it to the top of the lighthouse where we find out that we're just a hair too late. Jess and James have already lit the lighthouse and are preparing to move on to the next one. Before doing so, however, we face down with James. His name isn't actually James, it's Satoru's. This boss battle is actually kind of hard. Maybe I was a little underleveled, but he did give me some trouble, which I really enjoyed. It's a hollow victory though, as someone who looks suspiciously like our new friend Mia pops up out of nowhere and teleports away with Satoru's. Heh, nothing personnel, kid. With the first lighthouse completed, we're free to continue on to the next one. Before doing so though, we get some holy water from the fountain, bring it to Tret the Tri-Tree, and have him undo the curse in Kolima. At this point, I feel like the game kinda loses steam ever so slightly. It's not enough to sour the experience or anything, but we just worked up to a pretty big climax, only to then fall right back into the grind of saving villages from minor inconveniences. We do get some new Psynergies to use for puzzle solving, but none of them really shake up the gameplay to any meaningful extent. Oh right, gameplay. We haven't really talked about it outside of the Djinns. I think the footage mostly speaks for itself. It's a turn-based RPG where you have a standard attack as well as spells. What spells you have available is determined by your equipped Djinns as well as your level. To further boost your stats, there is a light equipment system. You can choose from a handful of weapons and armors. The equipment has a linear progression, meaning that whatever the latest piece of equipment you'll find is, it's going to be better than what you already have. I don't think it's a bad system, but it's very symptomatic of its time. There are really no choices to be made, and oftentimes I ended up just buying whatever sword or armor was better than what I had on me. It's an RPG from 2001 on the Game Boy. If you're looking for complex mechanics and real-time decision making, you're in the wrong place. Speaking of being in the wrong place, Isaac and gang come across a bunch of Asian towns with people practicing kung fu, and no, I'm not kidding, and yes, I think that Camelot can get away with this. It's in one of these Asian villages where Ivan learns a new power, Reveal. And you're not going to believe this, but Reveal does exactly what you think it does. It reveals secrets such as hidden passages, buttons, and items. Unlike most of the Psynergies used to solve puzzles, Reveal feels more organic in its implementation. Move and Frost can only be used in their intended places, whereas Reveal can be used anywhere to check for secrets. It's not a game changer, but it pairs well with the next area of the game, the desert. This is also one of those areas that really sticks out in my mind for some reason. In order to cross the desert, we need to use our newfound ability to reveal hidden oases so that our team can take a bath to cool down. Maybe I remember this area really well because I used to think it was a lot harder. Or maybe it's because of the creepy humanoid chimera boss at the end. Who knows. After this I actually got kind of lost. I mean, we're led into the next town where we circle back on the plotline of Ivan's adopted father Hammett being kidnapped, but after that I dallied around for quite some time looking for where to go next. When I was younger I was a lot more patient when it came to not knowing where to go. Figuring stuff out was half the fun and felt immensely rewarding. Nowadays, not so much. And that's not necessarily the fault of the game, but in this case you're supposed to go to the local inn of this particular city and talk to the people inside it to progress the story. It's not a crazy concept, I know, but as far as I can tell, there's also nothing indicating that this is what you're supposed to be doing. Oh well, onwards we go. I feel like I haven't done much besides just summarizing the game at this point, and poorly, I might add, so let's talk a little bit about what happened to this franchise until we reach the next big event. Golden Sun was lauded by critics at launch, landing it at a neat 91 on Metacritic. It did alright in terms of sales as well. Estimates say it sold around 1.5 million copies worldwide, which isn't bad by any means. Golden Sun's sequel, The Lost Age, was released only 1 year after the first game. It was a very ambitious title that expanded on pretty much everything in terms of gameplay. It sold and reviewed slightly worse than the first game, however, which may be why Camelot decided to pull the plug on the franchise. Well, that is until 2010 when they released Golden Sun Dark Dawn. While you would think that the franchise would have benefited greatly from finding a new home on the Nintendo DS, reviewers and fans of the series thought that the latest installment had dumbed things down significantly. I mention critics and hearsay because, well, I never played Dark Dawn. I had heard that it was in many ways a more toothless version of the first games, and at the ripe and edgy old age of 15 I was looking for a slightly racier experience. After this, the first two games were released on the Nintendo Switch's online function, and that is the last we've heard of Golden Sun in terms of game releases. Isaac has been featured in some of the Super Smash Bros. Games, but that's it. Not even as a playable character, mind you. As much as I would like to see a revival of this series, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I also don't even know if it's something that would really work that well. While I adore Golden Sun, there really isn't much to separate it from other JRPGs. The story is fairly generic, the combat would need a modern overhaul, and I think that in general too many people would see it as just another good versus evil Final Fantasy clone. Clone? Cyclone? Oh yeah, we're at the point in the game where I got stuck for weeks as a kid, and that is no exaggeration. In this desert there are these whirlwinds that'll swoop you up in the air. What you're supposed to do is open your Psynergy menu and use the spell Douse. You'll need to do this as you're suspended in the air by the whirlwind and not before. How on earth you're supposed to figure this out, I have no idea. This is made worse by the fact that for the most time in the game, you're inactionable when going through animations, meaning that a lot of people probably didn't even think to open their menu as they're stuck in the whirlwind. And look, I'm sure all of this is hinted by someone at some point, somewhere, but I didn't know about it as a kid and I sure missed it this time around as well. In fact, the exploration in this game can be kind of a pain in general. You are inundated with enemy encounter anywhere that's not a town. There is an item that supposedly lowers the encounter rate, but I can't say that I found it to work all that well to justify its own existence. This, along with the fact that fleeing battles isn't guaranteed to work, means that as soon as you're in a dungeon or in the overworld, you are constantly battling enemies. Couple this with all of the backtracking the game has you doing, with no fast travel, and the exploration becomes very onerous. More often than not, I would have to stop myself from making unnecessary moves in the wrong direction because it would have meant more encounters. And I know it's an old school JRPG and this is just the flavor back then, but good lord do I not miss it. We're nearing the end of the game. Jesse and James have kidnapped a local boy? Girl? Named Shiba. Shiba will help them light the lighthouse because she's a Jupiter adept. As we enter into the final dungeon of the game, I am awash with nostalgia. I remember so many of the rooms of this place, especially the one with the puzzle with the colored statues. When reading their minds, they use cardinal directions to indicate where they're supposed to be standing in relation to one another. Again, I didn't speak English back when I first came here, so I had to get my dad to help me out. My dad, not being a gamer, had no idea what was going on. This is by far the lengthiest dungeon of the game, and I also say it's the hardest. This lighthouse has a lot more rooms and it's easy to get turned around since you're constantly in and out of battles. Eventually though, we make it up to the top of the lighthouse where Menardi and Satoris are waiting for us. Felix and Shiba are also there, which makes this scene very similar to the first lighthouse encounter, as Felix is arguing to have them let Shiba go. Being the comic book villains that they are though, they stay the course and attempt to light the beacon. Even if you don't know the story of the first and the second game, it's clear that Felix is reluctantly in this party. For what reason, we don't know. Sartoris and Menardi don't really seem to trust him, and he doesn't really seem to necessarily want to help them. Naturally, we intervene with their plans, and this leads us into, I guess, technically our third fight with them. It goes pretty smoothly, as by now you'll most likely have some sort of strategy set for your battles. Mine is to just spam team heal with Mia. I know, it's pretty bold. What I had completely forgotten about though is the second phase of the fight. Sartoris and Menardi fuse into a dragon that absolutely rocked me on my first attempt. I think I mentioned it previously, but wiping in this game is surprisingly punishing. You get sent back to the last town that you were in, so not only do you have to spend money to revive and heal your team, you also need to walk all the way back to whatever thing killed you. But not to worry, we rally the team and manage to take down the final boss with some defensive maneuvering. Satoris and Menardi fall into the lighthouse, which I'm sure can't be good for them as the lighthouse proceeds to explode and cleave itself in half. Felix says that he's still set on lighting the remaining lighthouses, but refuses to explain why. I think that this is one of the game's bigger plot holes, unfortunately. Spoiler alert, but in the second game we find out that lighting the beacons is a way of actually saving the world and not destroying it. Felix allies himself with Satoris and Menardi out of a common goal, not because he's evil. And to be honest, neither are they. Their homeland is essentially freezing over and they believe that lighting the beacons will save their land. Seeing how Felix is from the same village as Isaac and Garrett, it seems like it'd be pretty easy for him to just explain what he's doing. Now, I'm not a fan of critics who point out plot holes as some sort of gotcha moment, but this one just seems glaring enough to where it's hard to ignore. Oh well, Felix yeets himself off the side of the tower and Isaac and crew just kind of calmly walk away. From here we get a ship and it's game over. Wait, what? What about the remaining lighthouses? Finding Jenna? Yeah, the game ends very abruptly. With everything that happens in the final cutscene, you'd sort of think the game would end more ceremoniously. It's a huge cliffhanger that aims to set up the next game. I realized that I might have come across as very negative towards Golden Sun in this video. It's a game that's very easy to nitpick, but ultimately I love it. The story is pretty weak and is told in such a way that it's hard to tell what events are actually important and characters just kind of come and go. I mean, do you remember Alex from the first half of the game? But all in all, there's an unmatched level of charm to all of it. I can't place my finger on it, but even now that I'm done with the game, I can't stop thinking about it. Despite the fact that this franchise has been dormant for the past 15 years, it still has a very strong following, and I think that should tell you everything you need to know about this game. I don't suspect that we'll ever get another follow-up, so for now, we'll just have to live with the magic that is Golden Sun.